Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am Fiona at Drawings in a Drawer and this is a new video. What you are seeing here is the palette I honestly quite randomly built up with Daniel Smith watercolours, which I am pretty much still experimenting with. And I wanted to show you close up these two colours, Shadow Violet and Moonglow. Just a magnificent granulation of them, almost like salt has been dropped into them. Some say they're very similar, but in my case I need to have them both. As you can see, one is much lighter than the other. Shadow Violet is lighter. And I really like using these for the backgrounds of my paintings. They give so much depth. I also used Silverblack velvet brushes. They are also a new purchase. And I have a large oval one, which is very soft and has an oval shape and a pointed tip. I have a number 8 and a number 1. These hold a lot of water. I find number 8 to be very soft and bendy, so you have a little less control. It also has a rather long tip. So yeah, they're really good brushes, but yeah, the larger one is my favorite one. This is my second painting with Daniel Smith, and it is a vignette from Carnival Row, the Amazon show, in case you haven't heard about it. She is a fae or fairy, living in a dark world of mythical creatures. So if that's your kind of thing, if that's your piece of cake, check it out. I really enjoyed it. As usual, I'm going right in wet and wet, just letting all the colours do their thing and flow and blend to get that really smooth first layer. And you'll know when I'm happy with it because you'll see me go in with my purple heat gun to kind of fix that base. So whichever paints I layer over it next do not blend in it or spread all over the place and make a mess. So I'm going in quite boldly here, as you can see, using these colours which are quite quite bright. I will go in with my heat gun every time I'm satisfied with a layer and then move on to the next layer. Now I would like to talk a little about my first impressions of these watercolours. They are beautiful and they're very famous and everyone loves them. But coming from Schmincke, Sennelier and Winsor & Newton, I find them very different to paint with. As I mentioned earlier, this is only my second proper painting with them. Of course, I did swatches, I messed around with them a little bit, but as far as, proper painting goes, this was, at the time of I filmed this video, this was only my second painting with them. So I don't know if I find painting with them very different because lots of them are so heavily granulating, definitely more so than the other brands I mentioned, or if it's the palette I picked. By the way, I chose 24 15 ml tubes. I purchased them from Jackson's UK and then I squirted them into this palette I got off Amazon, which is absolutely huge. It takes up so much space. I hadn't thought it would be so huge. Yeah, it's very big. If you don't have a lot of working space, if your desk isn't pretty huge, I would definitely go for a smaller palette. Anyway, it holds 24 colors. It's 24 paints. And the wells are sloped, which is something I like, or slanted, or whatever you call it. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that maybe I could have built a palette that made more sense, if this makes any sense to you. But I have tons of watercolours already, as I am a bit of a watercolour junkie, and I really wanted to get colours which were new to me. And any of you who know Daniel Smith will know that that's what sets Daniel Smith apart from other watercolour brands. It has all these granulating colours, it has all these iridescent colours, and it's just, you really just want to, get a bunch of these rather than go back to the basics. But I did get some basics, and then obviously I wanted to get a bunch of colours which were completely different from anything that I'd ever tried, that I'd ever used before. Because what am I going to do with a bunch of, I don't know how many tubes and pans and half pans of watercolours that are all basically the same? So I wanted to go wild a bit and experiment. So I wanted to get colours which were new to me.
For the base, I used buff titanium, organic vermilion, and maybe a dark mayhem blue, but just the tiniest amount of that. Otherwise, it would tend to go greenish. The buff titanium is the more yellowish tone you'll see me using through this process, and I find that compared to a Naples yellow, it tends to muddy up things a little more easily. But then again, that's very possibly my bad for mixing the wrong colours or doing something else wrong. I have since done another portrait with these watercolours, and I find exactly the same thing happened to me. The good thing, though, is that as I kept building up the layers and going darker to get those shadow tones and enhance the features by balancing the values, things gradually started to get better, and I really, really was pleased with the end result. So my final conclusion is, of course, that these paints are great, but that maybe I shouldn't be using the buff titanium to mix the skin tones. If any of you have any input on this, do let me know. I'll leave you for a couple of minutes to watch this time lapse, and then I'll be back with more thoughts and my final conclusions. So I'll see you in a bit. So here I am again, and again this painting too went through the now famous, infamous and renowned hot mess stage. It was way too light, and it reminded me more of a young Mia Farrow than a Vignette Cara Delevingne / Cara Delevingne. And that is also my advice to anyone out there learning to paint with watercolours. It is crucial not to give up when you reach that part of the process and push through till you literally see the light. Things usually do start falling into place once you get those darker colours in and start focusing on the eyes and eyebrows, which are almost always the focus of portraits anyway. Also when you start, getting the darker hair, because obviously this character had dark hair and not light hair, so it wasn't looking like her very much until I started layering in those strands of hair.
Also, the lips play an important role in this one, as her lips were always pretty bright in the show, and I used a mixture of reds, and last but not least, the beautiful and bright Opera Pink by Daniel Smith, which I also dropped into the cheek to get that pop of flush, or more likely it was probably makeup blush in there. As you will have noticed, I also used another brush throughout this painting. It was the one with the white handle, because it gave me more control than the silver black velvet one, and I think that it's a synthetic number 8 I got from my local art supply store. But I think I'll talk about that more in another video. I'll go through my favorite supplies and what I think someone starting out in watercolor should use, and what the most important things are, what you should spend more on, and what you can, buy that's more budget friendly. What's more important to spend money on, let's say, because somebody thinks it's watercolors, but actually I think personally it's not. But we'll get into that some other time. Otherwise, I'll just start rambling, and I'm sure you've had enough of listening to my voice. See how the shadows around the eye area get deeper. It just intensifies her gaze so much that really got this, that really pulled this whole portrait together. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave you now. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram and see all my works of art, if I dare to call them so on there, my handle is Drawings in a Drawer. And I also have a class on Skillshare called Women in Watercolour by Fiona Di Pinto, where I show a step-by-step, I have a step-by-step tutorial on how I paint portraits of women in watercolour. And I'm also on Facebook, and I am also called Drawings in a Drawer on Facebook. So see, if you want to find me, you can find me in all of those places, and I'll leave the links to these in the description box down below. And it would mean the world to me if you would like and subscribe, and keep creating, and bye for now.